Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, go with your pick right up what you were saying. Go ahead.
This is actually a good. Hopefully, if this works, this is a good starting point. So, it's my the biggest problem I have with normies is
And
Does it work? I have a bit of a problem to make it work, so it's gonna take a while before I can fix it.
like you'll point out. I'll point out what I know, and they'll retort with, well, they'll either call you a communist. They'll call me a communist. They'll call me a fascist. They'll call me a nihilist. They'll call me they'll say that I'm biased, right? But I'll point to actual history, not like
not Biden. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll demonstrate to them a broader, deeper knowledge of history, and they just turn off. I'll recommend things for them to read, and they won't. They don't want to put the effort in, and they'll just double down, and they'll accuse me of being a conspiracy theorist, right? But when I point out that governments across the world lie, people lie, we were just talking about that, people can be really full of shit, and I'll tell them listen, do the research for yourself, but they won't. The people, especially normies, they have this desire to just be. I think it's more than just laziness. They really want to believe. They have a need to believe in these legends and these heroes. I don't know.
Yeah.
It appeals to the human psyche. I don't know why, but it just does. It does. Before let me finish this. It's funny because conspiracy theory. So people will often they'll look at me or they'll talk to me like I sound like Alec Jones or something like that. I'm the thing is even if, let's say, 95% of what the mainstream media said was true. Let's just say that. Let's just say 95% of it, which is ridiculously, that's being really gracious.
Yeah.
Really, I don't understand these people because it's they never question the motives of people that push these narratives. It's kind of they just they never follow the money or say or why would someone push this kind of ideology. If I say something about men's issues, it's oh, clearly you don't have a girlfriend, or you're an incel, or you're something, you're low status or something, but they'll analyze.
They don't. Okay, so Rev, what you're saying is, just for since we're recording this for clarity, what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying is they don't understand what an ad hom is and why it doesn't work in an argument. And that's
Right.
what they're doing. They automatically resort to ad homs because they just cut right to insulting you, right?
Yes.
With typical cliches rather than countering your argument, right? So that's what they know how to do. Okay, go ahead.
That's right. No, it's a soft version of that. But it's like, and I've encountered this even from fellow MRAs. It's like even if their personal attacks are correct, you still have to address the other side's argument. And a lot of times I'm not even making an argument. Like disagree with me, but just address the historical facts. Read about what so-called family life was like in the 19th century. Don't take my word for it. Study the history of the railroads and electricity. If you you don't have to read the Daily Worker or Stormfront. Don't read some rag. Just open up a history book. But so many people they throw their hands in the air. I guess they just always have natural curiosity to understand the world around me. So I wanted to get to the matter, but so many people they want to they'll say that you're spinning a narrative and I'm not even I'm not telling them what to believe. I'm just read a book, faith, and they get offended. It's they're both lazy and they're scared, and and I don't quite know how to address this other than to ridicule them because it's irritating. It irritates me the most when liberals do it, because liberals in particular always pride themselves being cosmopolitan, sophisticated, and brutally and educated and all this crap, but they crumple. They don't want to actually.
Liberals will buy a leftist narrative. Yeah,
That's correct.
Most liberals are normies, but they'll still buy leftist narratives. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they're I guess the way to describe liberals is they're normies that are. They're just as much part of the status quo, but they wear this kind of pseudo leftist compassionate mask. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's
they like to use a descriptor for them rational, right?
Yes.
I used to have to.
And you go, not everything. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It has been recording, but it missed some of the things in the middle because this recording software is absolutely retarded. It will record, but it's recording your voices through my microphone. I hope that's not going to be too much of a problem.
As long as it can play it back.
Yeah, you can play it back. But I'm saying that, are you sure you don't want to switch over to using StreamYard, because then it would just record you directly?
Okay, I mean, how does that work? How complicated is it?
It's actually not complicated. If you go to where I put in other servers agenda mix. No, if you go to in general, use general here. Oh, where did I put the link? I put the link somewhere. It was actually very. Okay. I know I had it somewhere. I had no idea where it is. Okay, where is the? Seriously, what is it? Oh my god, it is so strange.
Social mystery. You posted something there.
Okay, I think that's that, because I don't remember where I put it.
Post it under agenda. Post it under agenda.
Okay, where is?
And then we just click on the link and we'll be in. Is that what's going on?
Yes, that's basically how it works.
Okay. I mean, I'm down for that. If it'll have a more quality recording, let's do that.
Yeah, it will still keep all the recordings we have, but just shift over that. But I can't find agenda anywhere.
It's under agenda is under, where is it? organization, other servers, VC agenda minutes. You just posted there. You literally, I'm pinging you now.
Okay.
You said I will go for some time, but it will.
Oh, there. Okay, here. I have here's the Streamyard link. You can click it.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool.
Click on that.
Okay, so let's all click on that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm clicking on it.
Perfect.
Enter in the studio, accept all cookies. Okay. Set up your mic and camera.
You don't have to use the camera if you don't want to. You can use mic. It's fine.
Accept all cookies. I just did accept wall this one time. Okay, I see. There I am. Mike.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all. So this will record everything we're saying pretty clearly, right?
Absolutely.
You're a bit,
Perfect.
You're a bit soft.
Okay, I'm just turning myself up a little bit. I don't know if that'll be better.
No, that sounds good. I will just leave the room for a while, but you guys would still be talking. It would still be recording, so it's all good.
Yeah, when are you coming back?
How do I get
Just a
rid
few
of
minutes.
the mirror my camera?
Few minutes? That's
How
good.
do I get rid of? I just don't want to be on the. What do I do now?
You can just like put like you can just click stop my cam. That's what I do. I will let you do that before you.
Do click on stop cam and do
Yeah.
unmute mic.
Yeah.
Okay, I did it.
Okay, so you there you are. Okay.
That is good. Okay, now everybody's here, and I can hear you. I'm just going to log off Discord. Okay, I should be able to hear you now. Hello? You guys there?
Yeah, I am.
Perfect.
Rev, what are you doing? Can you hear me?
You have to exit Discord.
You have to exit Discord, Rev.
Yes, that's good.
Are you there, Rev? Rev. I don't think he can hear us.
Oh, good. He can hear us.
You're very soft.
Can? There you are.
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're not loud.
That's okay. You're pretty loud.
I hear you guys.
That's weird. Hang on. Settings. Why audio? Why is that not working?
Well, I can hear you perfectly, so it's recording you perfectly. And
that's weird. Why is it? Oh, hang on one sec. Echo. Okay, why is this? Maybe hang on. Why can't I? Where's the volume?
Rev is a grassroots kind of guy. Technology
wait.
is his enemy sometimes.
I can't. That is so weird. Why?
You got it?
No, I can. I'm trying to increase.
We hear you
Why
perfectly.
can't I?
Yeah, it's perfect. It's like it's perfect recording.
Yeah. Can you hear us still? I mean, can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's just so. Why is it I can't put it on speaker? It's like I have to put my phone right next to testing.
You can't put it on speaker?
No.
Wow, that's weird.
It is.
You have your mic on, right?
I mean, I'm on my phone, so.
Well, there was two things. You had to you didn't want to be on the cam, so you basically you're not on the cam. Did you make sure your mic is unmuted?
Yeah. No, my mic is unmuted. Let me try
Okay.
that. What about try talking now?
Yeah. How about now?
No, it makes no difference.
Okay.
It's I'm gonna have to put the hang on one sec. Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to I'm looking at my phone, seeing if there's some sort of way to put this on. I'm trying to see if there's a way to get my give me one sec.
Because Drew's right. This is the best way to do it, to do the recording. So. Hey, Rev.
Yeah.
Rev.
I couldn't hear him.
He went out.
Okay, I'll wait for him to get back in.
Yeah. He's probably going to do it all over again.
Yeah, probably. That's probably have to be the way. Oh fuck!
Go,
Sorry.
go. Wait. Okay, wait. Now that sounds better. What happened? Hello.
Everything is just normal for me.
Okay. Now you sound louder for some reason. Where did Rocco go?
He's here. He didn't say anything for a short time.
I can't hear him. I can't hear a thing he's saying.
I think he's not saying anything. I think that's why.
What the hell? Okay. Rocco, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear anything he's saying.
That's so weird. Let me send him a message.
Yeah, try.
I can hear you, Drew. Drew, can you turn up your volume? Can you adjust your volume?
On what?
And when you sign into this StreamYard, it says adjust your when you first go in, it says adjust your mic or something like that.
I can hear you completely now.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I can hear you, Rocco. That's weird.
Well,
Can you
just did?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I basically I left by accident. I don't know. I was just fiddling around.
I think you just basically needed to log back in, and that's what did it.
Can you
sometimes? Yeah.
Can you guys adjust your volume, make yourselves louder?
Well, actually, your volume is actually way higher than Rocco's.
That's weird. Rocco, can you? Both of you guys, can you adjust it? Like.
No, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm
like almost at the top of my volume.
That's weird.
Can you hear me okay though?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to put the phone to my head because it's just it's not loud enough where I can like hear.
Wow. Okay.
Basically, I can't even if I wanted to, I can't show my face because I have to
Got it.
listen
Got it.
so
Got it.
closely. I don't get
Can
it.
you
I
hear
don't.
me good? Jay Willie, can you hear me good?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
as long as
Drew,
you can at least hear
you're the
what I'm
loudest.
saying. What?
Drew's the loudest
Yeah, that makes
by
sense.
far. For some reason he's I can hear he's quite loud. Rocco, when you first sign in, doesn't it give you the option of adjusting your mic?
Okay.
You can
Okay.
adjust.
So here's what. Okay. So I'm looking at more, right? And it says
Yeah,
settings.
yeah.
I'm gonna go settings. I'm gonna go to audio,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna see if I can automatically
Mic.
adjust the mic. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me louder?
That is a bit better. That's a bit
Okay.
better.
I'm gonna
Yes.
go all the way to the end.
Go ahead.
How about now?
That's actually holy shit. That's much better. Okay, good.
So let's I had to go into settings to be able to do that. Okay.
That's right.
So we can all hear each other. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jay Willie, go do whatever you want and come
Yeah.
back as soon as possible. Okay?
That will happen.
Okay. All right. So what were we ending up saying when we had to do all this, Rev?
So let's see. We were talking about liberals. I'm sorry about this is I really hope this works out. I mean, hopefully we can make a habit out of this, but if we have to learn how to adjust everything, then so be it.
It should be good. It should be good. But let's go. Yeah.
So basically, like this, I don't know, for people in the audience that are listening, like we're basically just talking about narratives and how people just somehow automatically they absorb these myths and these narratives, historical narratives. Without even really thinking about them.
Yeah.
And there's liberals and conservatives alike have these myths, and every nation has their myths, and it's like it's frustrating when you talk to people and like you talk to them about history, and it's like it's projection. They will project onto you some sort of like hidden agenda or a narrative.
Right. And we're specifically, just so we say it, we're not just, even though we can talk generally about narratives, we're also specifically talking about how it affects men in a usually a negative way. So men's issues. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they kind of all intersect. So, like, for example, like the country has its origin myths, and it revolves around war, which is obviously a men's issue. So it's like all this stuff. At some point, it intersects, and it's just it's people just somehow the all you need to do is have a bit of depth and breadth in your historical knowledge to be able to kind of just debunk all of these ideological myths and their legends and their heroes. It's not as difficult as you think. But I think that's why I think it's like it might be partial laziness, but I also just think it's fear. Like I feel like people don't want to question what they've been taught their whole life.
They don't want to upset the apple cart, and in a lot of ways they're under the impression that the apple cart works for them, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, especially men.
Yes.
For men, upsetting the apple cart is actually a good thing. If we would
Absolutely.
do it more on a societal level with a higher percentage of men doing it,
Yes. Yes.
because even if you say, well, a lot of men deep down inside they know it's bullshit, but the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, even if they do, because a lot of MRAs will say that, oh well, more men know it's bullshit than you think. They're not all completely brainwashed. Okay,
Right.
even if deep down inside they do, that's not an index or an indicator for them to actually do anything about it. Okay,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
there has to be more than that. So
Exactly.
by signing on to a narrative that you know is bullshit is almost even more, reprehensible to me. But as far as buying, just signing on to the narratives, I had something I was going to say. Um, it's really it's really maddening, when we get into these, like you said, these fears, and then people are just accepting things that just don't make any sense.
That's
For
right.
example, one of the big things, and like I said, this is one of the huge things among feminist women and normie women and even conservative women, right?
Yeah.
Is that back in the 19 early 1900s, or all the way up to the 1930s, there is a quote unquote women had it worser than men
Yes.
fucking narrative. And I
Yeah.
mean, all three groups that I mentioned, which is millions and millions of women, sign on to this. Like
Yeah.
conservatives sign on to this. Like conservative women will sign on to it and they'll say something really rather silly, like, "Oh, well, it's not that way anymore." But back in the early, no, it wasn't that way back then either. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Exactly.
so I'm not saying that women didn't have issues. What I'm saying is to phrase it as a voting issue having it worser, quote unquote, worser than men,
Mhm.
is actually historical revisionism, just like we
That's
were
right.
talking about. And it's just not true.
That's right.
It's also not true that men had the right to vote and women didn't have the right to vote. That is such
That's
an
right.
overly simplified issue, because there's only something like 50 years of difference between the
Even
general
less.
population of men voting
Yes.
and the general population of women voting. What I
Yes.
always say when that voting issue for women is brought up as women having it worser, I
Yeah.
go, "Do you realize you got that vote for free?" And they'll say, "What do you
Yeah.
mean?" And I'll say, you conscription wasn't part of the deal, man.
Yeah.
You got it for free. You got it because you were citizens, right?
I mean,
Men didn't have weren't able to vote without strings attached.
yeah.
So it's like, like you said, you've got to know, even if 95% of something is true, it's not in this case, but we're exaggerating. Like, let's just say 95% of something was true. The other 5%, I mean, you have to be aware of. You should know the whole story before you start shooting off your mouth.
Here's the thing. Everything you say is 100% true, but when you're dealing with normies, and I said this before, I will always, I'm not giving up that word because it's so appropriate.
I
It
love
doesn't
it
matter
too. Yeah.
whether liberal normies or conservatives.
Right.
We'll just interject with, yeah, well, we've never really, because what that does is that shuts them down, and it really, I force them out of their comfort zone. And
Yeah, they want to
I
get
get them to
tribal
like
with you and
really,
say, "Oh, liberals are blah, blah, blah,
right,
blah, blah, or conservatives are
exactly,
blah, 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 blah." That's what they
exactly,
want to jump
exactly,
into. And when you don't give them that out, then they're kind of out of their comfort zone. I agree with you 100%.
exactly.
Yep.
It's not. I mean, the truth is, like, your vote is kind of worthless anyway, and it's like, I really, you you could do what you said you do. I mean, if you want to play, Dr. Historian, that's fine. But I just know that 95% of the time, most people are just going to shut off. So I'm just like, yeah, I tell people, I tell people, I've told normies and women this, like, I don't care about voting. I'd rather just not get drafted. Like, I tell them, I don't give a shit. Voting is dumb. It doesn't work. That'll test them, because if they're normies, they'll really get upset that you say that. Like, do not, like, I've learned, do not, in certain conversations, do not give them an inch. I've been accused of being a nihilist, and I don't care. Like, just do not give them an inch. Like, it's a tactic that has always worked. It's like, I'm not going to allow them to think that, like, any of their narratives, historical narratives, hold any water, because they don't. Like, the second you concede to them that they might have a point, you've lost. It sounds arrogant, but the truth is, it really works. Like, it's like you're not going to reason, like, with these people. You're not and when I say that I'd rather not vote than be drafted, I mean that. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, I voted before, and, like, you go to a polling station and you stick a piece of paper in a ballot, or you go in some machine. Like, it doesn't really have any impact on national politics. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like voting is empowering at all. Like, I've been to protests. I've been arrested before. Like, I'm sorry, but my vote, like, it doesn't do anything. Like they make it. You could say, oh, but men, women got. You could break it down in the details. So you could say, for example, let's say, the UK is a good example. You could say that working class men didn't get the vote until 1918. And women, I think it was like 10 years later. It was the way the law was passed was a bit weird. But it was basically, women got the vote. All women got the vote at the same time that the bottom third of UK men did, who didn't own property. It's a little different in the US, but basically, like, the difference is, like you said, you're talking about, like, 50 years. I mean, you could, like, splice up the details forever, but I just go for the jugular every time. I'm like, I don't give a shit about voting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, it's the women didn't. Voting was always tied to military service, and then
property, and many times it was tied to property. Women who had property could vote. The only reason, like, when voting was tied to property before conscription became tied to give you voting rights, the only reason why there were more men who voted than women was because was because sons got more inheritance than daughters.
That's correct.
And because when a woman got married, her property was subsumed in her husband's name. However, the only reason why the laws were constructed that way, not saying that those laws were good or anything, I'm just saying that the reason why that was because if you have a son or a daughter, right, and the daughter is guaranteed to have marriage and family, and the son isn't, then of course your son is going to inherit more than your daughter. It's just common sense, right? And because men were way more responsible and actually had to follow the law and was completely responsible as adults and not under someone else, like custody as women were. Despite having freedom as adults, they still had a lot of husbands had obligation to like for his wife, right? Even though she was an adult, right? And that's the reason why he got the custody of her property too, right? Not saying that that's a good system. I'm saying that it was a consistent system. It was not because they wanted to put the women in their place. It wasn't like that.
Right.
It was
Right, right.
because he thought that was just like the best way of running society, which is not a society I agree with. I don't think that's good, but I'm saying that the reason why more men were that, but they were able to vote was because more men have property, and this is why more men had property. Women who refused to get married, or widows, like if her husband died and her kids were like small, and she was custody of her property until her son was like an adult, which means that she got to vote, right?
Right.
And that's the reason why it was less women to vote. But nobody has a voting right, only property owners, and there were just more men having property because of the laws. So there was no gendered in the voting right itself, used in the property ownership. Used when it comes to property ownership, that was gendered, but that was only gendered because that was considered to be a way to give men a little bit more access to what you need with the family life. Otherwise, you're gonna because you need
Okay.
to have kids, and otherwise you're
Every-
gonna die.
Okay. This is what normies don't seem to understand. Okay, everything you said was correct, Drew. See, normies don't understand that. They don't understand the concept of materialism. That's a Marxist. Some people would say it's a Marxist term, but you can be a materialist without being a Marxist. It's basically society. We don't live in feudal. We're not a feudal society anymore. The Industrial Revolution changed everything, and the biggest the number one thing the Industrial Revolution changed was the way the importance of land ownership. And like the thing is that marriage fundamentally changed in the 19th century. Conservatives always go on about the 60s and feminism, but it changed hundreds of years ago. And it's with the Industrial Revolution, like women with changes in technology, women had the ability to be more independent, not because of some conspiracy or malicious oppression. Women, the very nature of life, it changed, and this is something that normies just don't understand. Like the nature of property inheritance changed because by the 19th century, the developed world, land ownership didn't matter as much anymore. Owning horses and doing physical labor didn't matter as much anymore. Like feudalism was pretty much gone, and it's like historically, what Drew, you said that the vote was tied to property was absolutely true, and for thousands of years that meant owning land. It didn't mean owning factories because there were no factories. It meant owning land and probably slaves, unfortunately, as well. In fact, and a lot of people forget this, that in ancient, I think it was, I think in ancient Greece, voting was restricted to property owners and those that served in the military. It was both. And then Go ahead.
I know that the reason why conscription became tied to voting was because they had only landowner vote, and
That's right.
then they wanted to conscript a lot of men, and then it wasn't considered fair that these men were conscripted to
That's
fight for
exactly like,
a
okay, what you're
government.
describing early 19th century. It was, hey, we're basically conscripting them. They're gonna lose their lives and get their arms and limbs blown off. We need to give them this carrot of having the vote. That's what it was.
Yeah,
It was
no,
that
that's what I was saying.
fucking. It was that fucking simple. Yeah,
Well,
Yeah, that's
you're
the reason why it
100%
wasn't
right.
just landowners
You
who
want
got to
Jay
vote, and
Willie.
that's
You're
only
100% right.
gendered, and that
Yeah.
was following a gendered conscription laws, right? Not following the conscription did not follow voting rights. It was the other way around, and that's the reason
That's right.
why you include women.
Right, exactly.
But
Well, I wanted to address something real quick, Rev. What you were saying.
Rocco,
Go ahead.
hang on. Let me finish my point. I know it's a bit long-winded, but I'm going to tie it up, okay?
Go ahead.
It was the Romans. What you said was it was the Romans that first extended voting to I guess you could say people, non-Roman citizens outside the empire who served in the army, because they obviously
Right.
didn't own land, and we had to give them an incentive to join the military. So it's funny how history repeats itself. Okay,
Right.
now I'll tie this all up. I know I've been talking for a while. The
That's
thing is,
okay.
all I'm saying, it's kind of, I know it's very heavy, and like that's the problem with most normies. You go into the history about this, and they'll think that you're either trying to show off how smart you are, or that you're some sort of nerd or something. And it's like that's why, as I said in the beginning, it's better to just like go for the jugular. Like it's not like, if you, most people that buy these narratives, they buy these narratives in the first place because they're quick and cheap and dirty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like I always go. I love to lead with nukes. Like I lead with the nukes, and if they are curious, I'll explain. But like, I'm not like
Give an example of leading with a nuke.
So like I said, voting doesn't matter. Like I tell them I don't care about like I tell them I don't care about voting. I care about conscription. Like I lead with that. Like I lead with that. Like some people say, oh, that's edgelording, but like normies they're normies for a reason. They're normies because they like these kind of very good versus evil binary. They like these stories of kind of good versus evil and struggle. And if you just point,
of course it is.
It's not comforting, to tell people that like human existence has always been incredibly fragile and violent.
Exactly.
That, like, these institutions change gradually over time. Okay, another thing, another bomb I drop on people is I tell them straight up that it's simply not true that women got the vote before men got the vote before women, because the bottom line is that there were many men that couldn't vote in the U.S. In the 60s and the 70s. In fact, you had to be 21 to vote in the U.S. until 1971, but you could still be drafted. So, I don't. Both you and Drew have demonstrated. I know you guys know your history. Like we have gaps and we can fill it in. But when you're talking to people that either are not, like they're not at that level, or they're just normies, like most people are not like really ideological, and they're not historians. So you just have to punch them below the belt, because they're like, if they show that they're willing to engage authentically, then you can go into the details. But just tell them that it's just not true. Like there are plenty of you know what I'm saying. Like
I want to address that. I want to address that with you. I want to address that. Okay. So, you didn't make an accusation, but I mean, you agreed. Everything you're saying is exactly right, Rocco. But here's what I wanted to say. I did hit below the belt, and how I hit below the belt is just like you say. You can take any kind of ideological bias right off the table, telling them, go research for yourself. Go read about this shit for yourself if you don't believe me. But where I am hitting below the belt, exactly like you, I tell them I don't give a fuck about staying at home and housework. I'm talking about getting your fucking limbs blown off. Okay? Right. That has an impact, because a lot of normies will go, well, since they're not really ideologues per se, but they're just lazy as far as thinking, a lot of normies will go, oh, well, okay. And I'll go and I'll say, so that wasn't the major issue of the day. The major issue of the day was which humans are getting which humans are getting conscripted, and which humans aren't. And here's another narrative that oh wow, men had privilege because they could just go out and work. The privilege was not in working, because what the shit that they had to do I guarantee you, if you gave them the choice, most of those guys down in the coal mines,
Yes.
okay, and working in the sewers weren't going to pick that fucking job to do. Okay, so
Yes.
that wasn't a privilege. Those
Yes.
aren't
Oh,
privileges.
and
Yes.
Digging
not
through
add.
shit and bacteria, which
Yes.
they didn't like know how much they had to protect themselves back then. They weren't there today. They got today we know they got to wear like head to toe suits when they're doing shit like that, and
Yes.
also breathing in all that black lung. Um, and doing that for 12 hours a day is not a fucking privilege. There's another narrative. So
Oh,
I,
I
I
have
hit
to
him.
add
I,
something
I
about
hit him
work.
below the belt too.
Th-
I immediately make that comparison going, I don't really give a shit about housework. You know? I mean,
There's
go
actually
ahead.
a very important thing about it, and that is that people think that women were quote unquote not allowed to vote, which is not true.
Yeah.
Actually, like women in the past, the vast majority of women were always able to vote. Actually, a lot of the time, most women were actually required to vote. The only reason why a lot of women didn't vote back then was because then nobody would be able to look after their children, and also because they were so rich that their husbands told them not to, the upper
Right.
class women, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That was the only two examples. A woman, usually a time in most human, all let's say early all modern history, right? Most of women actually like were required to vote because they couldn't afford living on one wage. The only time they didn't was because when the kids were breastfeeding, and then when the kids were not breastfeeding anymore, they had to vote.
Right.
Like that's
I mean,
basically what it was. Like
it, I mean, in every country was. I mean, I think I know what Drew is talking about. It's for example, um, I know vaguely about the U.S. states, so I know.
Right.
I don't remember what amendment it was. It was in 1920. So before, so was it the 18th Amendment or something? 20? I can't remember, but it was before then. It was up to the states. So basically, until that amendment was passed, I think it was half of all women could vote in half of all states, and every state was different. So it was like in some states it was like there was a requirement like you had to be the head of the household or something like that,
there's like the
and like
land ownership.
yes, something like that, and it was like you and some states had restrictions, so it was like um you if you were a woman and you were married you weren't the head of the house, you could vote at the state level but not the federal or vice versa. So like this idea that in the US women had to wait until the whatever amendment, it's just not true. I mean it's kind of, I mean that's the thing, it's like it just it gets into hair splitting, but the biggest thing first, another thing people forget, like democracy is so new. Like voting wasn't even a thing for the vast majority of people until I think that was the first was the French in the French Revolution. It's like it's such a kind of um, disingenuous topic. I mean, medieval peasants couldn't vote; they couldn't read and write, but somehow feminists turn it into some sort of conspiracy, like it meant something. Like men were maliciously depriving women vote, like in medieval villages and shit. Like what? Like nobody.
Yeah. For the whole of human history, 6,000. I mean, not
Yeah,
human history, but civilization, right? So let's go. A lot of people are saying civilization is a lot older, and I kind of sway towards that. But let's go with
yeah,
the academic view of it. 6,000 years of civilization. The vast majority of those years, except
yes,
for 200 plus years,
yes,
nobody could fucking
yes,
vote and had democracy. You know what I mean?
yes,
That was like, the fact that the Greeks, pioneered it means nothing. Okay.
yes,
For the vast majority of human history, the vast majority, like what are we talking about? Over 95%?
yes.
Um, there was no such thing as democracy.
That's
You know,
correct.
there was no such fucking thing as human rights. All right. This is all like new, these are all like old concepts that were being implemented
That's correct.
a little over 200 years ago.
That's
They
right.
weren't. They were known, like philosophers talked about them, but they kind of still accepted like what society
That's right.
was doing. Human rights, bodily autonomy, fucking democracy. Those
Yes.
those weren't implemented. They just weren't.
But
You
most
know.
of those things are still not implemented in most countries.
That's
If you
correct.
look at
That's
human
correct.
rights,
Yeah.
there's actually not a
That's right.
single country on the planet that actually have all human rights being protected by their laws.
Right.
That's right.
Not one.
Exactly. Right. Still. So, but that's the whole thing. So, like, what's really scary is that when you say things that are just, when I say you, I'm talking about normies, I'm talking about leftists, I'm talking about tradcons. When certain things are repeated and they're passed down through the culture and the psyche, when you say
Yes.
things like monstrous things, like what would be
Yes.
considered hate speech, and they're
Yes.
said matter of factly, like for any other group or any other demographic, it would be considered hate speech, and
That's
they're
right.
just accepted matter of factly
That's
by
right.
the majority of the population, even if part of the population knows they're bullshit. They're still being
Right.
accepted. When
Right.
you
Right.
say shit like this, was like my conversation with this woman the other day that lied and said she was a lumberjack.
Right.
She's like, women didn't have no. She was like, men. I'm trying to think of the exact phrasing she used. Men weren't the one that men weren't the ones that were basically what did she say? Weren't basically the ones that suffered in war, and that's what I
Right.
immediately like went, what? And I said, what you said was so fucking monstrous. Why don't you
Yes.
just say the Holocaust never happened? But the fact that she thought she was able to get away with saying it,
Right.
such a revisionist history. And she goes, oh, no, it was women. See, that's a total feminist bullshit line. That's
Yes.
women, and they try to throw children in there like they're being like, inclusive. Women and children were the ones that were abused more or had suffered more. And I'm like, where the fuck do you get this? So I just started throwing out, history. I go, this is why I know you haven't read history. And once again, just like you said, go read. Go read about the total number of deaths per population, because the only time women went into the millions of deaths were when, the opposing country like bombed, right? Their enemies. And even then, men were still the majority of the population. Now
Exactly.
go read all deaths, including like deaths in war, deaths from bombing, deaths from human rights abuses, and war crimes. Go read about the numbers. You are going to see that the vast majority were men. This is like ridiculous what you're saying, but this kind of shit, that women are the ones that suffer in war.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a narrative that's embraced and accepted.
Well,
It just
you know,
is.
it's funny because
It's absolutely nuts. Go ahead.
you mentioned children, and it's funny that you mentioned that because women have far more rights than children, and
They
still
do.
do to this day. And it's I bring this up because it's a um, great example of psychological manipulation, because
Totally is.
it's like when it suits them, it's like women and children first, because children are somehow tied to women, right? Because
Right.
reason, right?
Because
Reason,
yeah.
because children come out of the women, therefore, blah blah blah. Women are more nurturing, blah 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 blah. Even though historically, and children had no rights, they were beaten and abused in industrial factories in England in the 19th century. They were making
there was
like
no like back in the time, like
yeah
when what's his name wrote Oliver Twist
yeah.
and Scrooge and shit like that. One of the things he was writing about was child labor laws.
That's right.
Children had no fucking rights at all.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
None, and it's like it's the these techniques. This is why I've made this point. Like because I kind of used to be like both you guys
Charles Dickens. Yeah.
I used to do what you guys did, and I would go into like great detail about history because to be honest, I just liked history and I like talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is, most people just don't like history. They just don't care. There's no, and you don't even know if they're listening to you. Like they'll pretend to listen to you. So I don't like. If you want to do that, that's fine. But when I personally just would rather not waste my time and energy. Like I don't tell them to educate themselves because that sounds arrogant. But it's like if their historical narratives are that way off, I don't feel like holding their hand. You know what I'm saying? Nobody held my hand. I had to kind of. I was just curious. I had a morbid fascination with.
Right, I get it, man. But you know how you say you hit him below the belt? I think that's contradicting what you're saying a little bit. You've got to throw some kind of cold water on their face, and the only way to do that is to bring up a real historical extreme example. Because to them, an extreme example is saying that men being able to go to work wasn't a privilege. That's an extreme example to them, but it's the truth.
Right.
So I think cold water on the face and saying one of the ways of hitting below the belt is to let them know that. Right?
Oh yeah. No.
And then they'll go, what are you fucking talking about?
Absolutely. No.
Right?
When you mention that was an example of something that I would do. Like I would say I tell people voting sucks, and I say work sucks, and it's funny because normies hate it when I say this, and whether they're conservatives or liberal, because as much as they pretend to hate each other, their myths align on certain things like progress and I don't know, work being awesome and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, dude,
bullshit. Privilege is not needing to work. People say like,
exactly.
Exactly. You can work. No, you don't. Anybody who says that they get meaning from work is coping. There's nobody who can actually. I don't think anybody believes that. I don't think anybody actually believes that. Okay, they might do it just as a cope, but I don't think that's actually like genuine.
It's absolutely
largely. If I had to like pick between the two, who's worse about it, I would say tradcons are, they're these big work whores, work all these hours for no reward whores, right?
Yes.
I would say tradcons are more that way, but to be honest with you, leftists are that way too. They just do it in different areas. Like you should sacrifice all these fucking hours to, for all these fucking social causes, right? That they approve of, right? So it's the same, and it's kind of the same in in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
They somehow, it's almost like they have this unwritten agreement where they there's certain things that they won't challenge. It's like, for example, the same way that radical gender feminists and Christian fundamentalists will work to keep prostitution illegal, even though ideologically,
or try to shut down strip clubs.
Yeah.
All that shit. Yeah.
Or anything it's or even drugs. They work together. I think alcohol. It was the 20th. Was it 20th Amendment or 1920? It was all at the same time. It's
Yeah.
In fact, women's suffrage was tied to prohibition, and people forget that.
It was.
It's interesting, and then people like they they'll call you a conspiracy theorist, even though like you even I've said this, but even though you point out that like every political party lies, every nation lies, like everyone has their myths, but somehow you're a conspiracy theorist because you're questioning their narratives. But it's funny because I noticed this about leftists, and Drew pointed this out. Like throughout history, not having to work was a sign of privilege. I mean, literally, they call them the aristocrats called themselves the leisure class. They wore it on their sleeve. They were proud of it. And the funny thing is, it's like modern leftists have, since the 60s, have watered down the definition of privilege to a point where it's meaningless. Like nowadays, the word privilege can mean like you're tall or you're privileged to be gifted academically.
Right.
Like it means nothing. In the past, throughout 99.99999% of history, privilege literally meant you were endowed by birthright with documents saying that you were the son of blah blah blah, and that
Right.
ancestors owned these lands, and that you were, it was like it was codified in law. It didn't mean that you had some money or that you were educated. Like it didn't mean like
probably the best example that is the most known, if you want to look at it, is pre-French Revolution, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You had people living out on the street, shitting on the street, eating rats, right?
Yes.
And the privileged class that you said had papers. It was all tied to their bloodlines and everything. Yeah, they were living in fucking beautiful mansions and palaces and all kinds of shit. Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, and this ties back to what I was saying about the Industrial Revolution. Sorry, but all of this stuff is connected. But this is the thing. Like before industrial capitalism, the number one way you were rich, but there really was only one way of being rich, and that you inherited it, and that you inherited land. Like it wasn't like you could kind of. People did start their own businesses. Like there were merchants. I mean, they existed in medieval Europe. But like in the French Revolution, the big divide was between. They called it the nobles of the sword. I don't know how to say it in French. The nobles of the pen. So basically, rich people, the new rising industrial class would buy. They would buy their nobility, and so they were the new nobility, but they had to purchase. It was a title, like the privilege meant it was a legal, title to land, because that's how it went into feudalism. Like you got.
Yeah.
Land.
They got all that from the Romans, right? But the Romans took it even a step further.
Yeah.
The Romans were like, if you were a pleb, like you could still be a pleb, even if you like worked your way up, because
that's right.
Believe it or not, certain plebs, the commoners, could get a successful business and become, very wealthy from it. But if you were born a pleb, you were always still considered a pleb. Does that make sense?
That's like a very important point.
So everybody that wasn't a pleb, as far as the upper class, it had everything to do with heritage.
Yes,
if you were born from nobility or born from the upper class, that you were that way just because. Yeah.
It was the patricians and the plebeians, you could become wealthy plebeian, but you were still a plebeian, and like that's
still
something.
Always a pleb.
Always.
Yeah, exactly. And the modern left seems to forget this. The like even when it comes to things like racial privilege, like back in the day, there was literally a racial class system, but it was enshrined in law. Like nowadays,
Still in some countries.
what's that?
Still are in some countries.
Exactly, but the how do I it was a legal title, like discrimination exists, but it's not the same. Like it's not the same as privilege. The left has watered down the term privilege to a point where it's convenient for them, because now they can say men are privileged. You can literally say men are privileged because they are less likely to get breast cancer, even though they're more likely to get other cancers. So it's all semantics. It's all just tricks. It's all moving the goalposts and sleight of hand and just changing the definition of words.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no
Like okay, so men are even though this isn't 100% true, let's just for argument's sake assume it's true. Men are more privileged because they're less likely to get jumped on in the middle of the night and raped. Okay. But men are far more likely to get jumped on in the middle of the night and killed. You see what I'm saying? It's always semantics, and it's always which one they want to use. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like one thing I would like to say when it comes to like we talk about nobility, it's actually a good point, because a lot of people seem to confuse nobility with wealth, which
That's
is not
correct.
true, because a
That's
noble man could technically like lose all his or her money and still be a
That's
nobleman.
correct.
You're poor
That's correct.
nobleman, but you're still going to be able to have that title, and you still that's just a baroness, and she's dirt poor because she made stupid investments, and and now she's poor, but she's still a baroness because she has a title, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And then usually you marry another guy who was rich, and then he would get a title, and then she would get money, and then the kids would have a title too, right? And that's just how it works. The title is just a leverage you can use in order to get wealth, but it didn't come with wealth.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It was like it's the same way that in the UK, like Sir such and such, like people were knighted. It was like what it literally meant was that you entered the you gained a title which gave you certain privilege. I mean, it happened. Privileges. It happened, but it happened throughout all of history, and I mean, that's literally what feudalism is. Under feudalism, the system was you would swear your allegiance to a king and your military service. In return, the king would grant you land, okay, and then you could in turn subdivide it, and it could go on down the chain of command. Like that was like there were different levels of nobility. So I
actually know them. I can actually explain it. Like emperor is highest, and then you have king, and then you have duke or prince, depending on like the law, and below that you have count. And below that you have viscount, and under that you have above count you have marquess, and on the marquess you have count, and then it's viscount, and then it's baron, and below baron you have lord, and then knight.
That's right.
That's interesting. I didn't know the exact tiers the way you spell it out. You know a lot about that stuff.
Yeah, I know all the tiers.
Just to kind of divulge into something a little bit funny, because we're getting really serious here. And we'll go right back on. Like I don't understand the deck of cards. What is the jack?
I think the jack
is it supposed to be like a duke? I mean,
yeah, it's almost like a duke, baron, and knight. Is basically what it is. Like it's basically like a duke, baron, or knight. Because
so I mean, I was like, why didn't you just call him that? What?
Well, that is because they couldn't decide if it was either going to be the duke, the king, No, if it's either going to be the Duke, the Baron, or the Knight. There is
Yeah.
like, yeah, I usually say with Jack because then it could be a Jack. Yeah, it just like they just put it that way. So then it could be.
That'd be
anyone.
funny in history if we ever had a time machine and someone just like went to a royal court and he pointed at a guy and he goes, "You must be the Jack." He'd be like, "What the fuck?"
But in terms of hierarchy, it's it's not just interesting; it's important to know because it was pretty universal. Like, medieval knights were very similar to samurai in Japan. Like,
Yes.
they were basically at the bottom of the top. So being a knight, it was the same in Japan. Like being knighted just gave you the opportunity to own land, but you still had to work with your own hands. Like samurai were farmers themselves. They owned the land, but they had these still work. A lot of samurai had to work their own land, and things evolved throughout time. But it was basically being a peasant or serf meant that you owned nothing. That's you were tied to the land. It was different from age to age and throughout the world, but like literally being a knight just meant that you were above the peasants. You served in some sort of military capacity, and you had the right to own land. Like it's something like. People forget this in terms of like when they use terms like privilege. Privilege historically meant something. It was legal. It was like enshrined in law. Like you were granted something by the government or the powers that be or your lord or something. It wasn't just like. As Drew pointed out, like it didn't necessarily mean you were super wealthy or that you didn't have to work with your hands. I mean, perfect example. Japan, medieval Japan, fell in the 19th century because the merchants ended up owning all these debts. They ended up running society, even though they were at the very bottom. In feudal Japan, merchants were considered at the very bottom of society. I think they were below peasants even. Like it was considered dirty work. Medieval Japan was very isolated and backwards looking. They wanted to hold on to feudalism, and there was no correlation between privilege and wealth. It was a title. You know what I'm saying? But the problem with feminists is that they've just managed to pollute the language to a point where it's utterly meaningless. It's just you. There's no. You can't really have any sort of conversation with them because they'll change the definition of words from second to second.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what they believe, and they don't even know what they believe.
And then it got to the point where this definition of women didn't last in the left either. And now the left, now they're failing. They're never going to be able to recover. I think left politics in Western countries are dying.
You think
Let's address the biggest, since we're, I don't want to stray off into too much of just the general public being affected by narratives. Let's get back on men's issues right now.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, and I'm sure you guys agree with that. So basically, the biggest one that pervades and it's become academic, and there's been no. Janice Fiamingo said this. She goes, I was a feminist, but then, when I finally, hit my head and came to my senses, I'm like, patriarchy theory has never been vetted. Well, hell yeah, it's never been vetted. Okay, so it's an academically accepted truth without ever being vetted or being tested or being subjected to skeptical inquiry.
That's right.
And when you start subjecting it to skeptical inquiry, it just completely falls apart.
That's right.
But you have a very scary percentage of the population that actually believes it's true. So the normie population, and even the normie population of men, there's maybe, I don't know if it's majority, but there's enough of them that go along with feminists that's a patriarchy theory is correct. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you just start, okay, so this is the biggest narrative and the biggest myth that is a con and has been thrust upon the public. Okay, so like it just doesn't make sense on any level. Like I've just like I said, I usually just go, I benefit nothing. I have no benefit from guys in power having dicks. Like, where are you? I mean, it's almost like you're gaslighting me.
I mean, like,
Why would I benefit why would I
like
benefit from that shit? Why
even if
would you
they
think a guy having a a a, a bat and a pair of balls and a mitt is going to care more about me than women? I mean, what? Like, where are you fucking getting this shit from? It doesn't even make any sense. It's such a broad leap across a chasm. And then when
Yeah,
you
but
start looking at everything, you start going, well, wait a minute. It doesn't make any sense because the quote unquote patriarchy, which is a code name for the elite, the elitists don't give a shit about the general population men. They don't give a
exactly.
shit about them. They
Yeah.
fucking give a shit more. Even if you say it's for their votes, they still give a shit as far as actions on the female population. So, I mean, we don't even have Warren Farrell couldn't even get the Biden administration to, and he has a little bit of pull in politics because he developed a little bit of a reputation. Yeah, he's too much of a nice guy, but he did develop a little bit of reputation as being a more, someone who's not that radical. But anyways, he wrote a letter to the Biden administration on what would be the possibility and why don't we have an office for men and boys when we have an office for women and girls. He could not get them to respond. Okay,
I have a
so I
very
mean, like, where's this patriarchy coming in? And if you look at all gender based, and people are like, no, that's not true, and then you do the same thing, and then you go, okay, it's real simple. Look at all branches of government. Just it's the same all over the West, but let's just take America. Look at all branches of government and look at all gender based programs in each branch that specifically deal with either men and boys or women and girls. All of them that have anything to do with health and wellness are for
Yep.
women and girls. And people
Yes.
go, no, that can't be true. And then you go, yes, that is true. So I mean, when I say things like it is impossible for the patriarchy as defined by feminists, it's impossible for it to exist because it doesn't do what it says it's supposed to do. It
But
doesn't give us an advantage. It doesn't have us work like less hours. It doesn't have us work less stressful jobs. It doesn't give us any government programs, which I think we need a hell of a lot more government programs for us. You know?
you,
if they're gonna exist, women we should have it too, because
Yeah.
women have longer lifespans and they're usually able to they are more reproductively successful and they have more longer lifespans. Which, looking at being a living organism in general, that is objectively better.
Yeah, exactly. A
So, like,
lot of
why
them
is that
would,
like?
right.
Shouldn't we have it? If you want equality, shouldn't we address that to make it more equal? If you want to have
absolutely.
equality of outcome, which I always claim, we cannot just let people fail. We need to make sure that the outcome is equal. And I'm like, yeah, but the outcome is in favor of women. Can you fix that? No,
Yeah,
because women,
exactly.
despite women living longer and more likely to have children and families and to keep their kids if they're divorced, they don't make as much money. Yeah, they managed to be able to breed more, to keep their kids more and live longer despite making less money. That sounds
Yeah.
like shouldn't like
Yeah,
Just making
well,
all the money basically
okay.
completely doesn't.
Yeah,
Wait, wait,
well, you're trying to use logic there, Drew.
let
So,
me ask
go ahead.
you guys a question. What percentage of men do you think could define the term patriarchy?
Like
It's really low.
I can do that, technically speaking.
No, but not
Okay,
you.
no, but
We're not
what
talking
percentage?
about MRAs or like
I'm
people in the know.
normal,
What
normal.
percentage of the male population do you think they
Yeah.
could
Like
good
one.
define the patriarchy?
Well, and let me ask you another question. What percentage of men do you think even like know of the various branches of feminism?
Just maybe
Uh,
1%, I guess.
if that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. High is 1% of either question. It's not much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big problem is that a lot of guys don't even like acknowledge, like they don't even acknowledge. They somehow instinctively just don't want to rock the boat. They have no idea what they're signing on to when they nod and their girlfriend or wife babbles on like a toddler. They don't know. I think the problem with men is much deeper. Like they're just really afraid to ever even gently push back against women or these narratives. I think that like that.
I actually think I have a little bit of an answer for that, and that is that men in general don't really like to be to admit the fact that they are in a position either individually or socially that is a weak or a less desirable position. They're more likely to want people to think that they are better off than they are because they know they're not going to get any help. While women would prefer that people think they're worse off than they actually are because then they will get something. But so basically, a lot of feminists, they say that men don't want to talk about their emotional, that it's toxic masculinity. I'm like, yeah, but why, if that's toxic masculinity, why the fuck does all these feminists keep promoting the same thing that causes toxic masculinity if that's such a bad thing? If it's a bad thing, shouldn't they vote against it by making sure that men that have problems can actually have their problems addressed and their emotions addressed? And they say, no, we can't do that because they're not valid. I'm like, yeah, but then you use one toxic masculinity. So do you want to have how they define toxic masculinity? Do they want that or do they not want it? Because they say they don't want it, but
why? My question is deeper.
Like they get it. Like, do you want it? Like, can it be consistent? They can't because, and I'm using their definitions here. That's the problem. That's the point.
No, I get it. But my question is deeper. Why? Why are men so afraid of showing any vulnerability? I'm being genuine.
Yeah, because if you do that, then that's not the reason why men do that less is because if men do that, then it's either not going to be taken seriously as quicker.
That's right. I agree with that.
Or it's going to he's actually going to lose opportunities because he's not going to be viewed as being like sustainable or like successful or have good qualities. Because when it comes to people, instinctively they presume hyper agency on men and hyper agency of women. Right. That is, if you're a woman, if you actually complain about something or basically make sure that you're in distress, that's actually going to be into advantage. It's actually in that is actually so much in the other direction. There's many women that are successful in order to, or they don't have problems, would actually like pretend that they actually have it worse off.
Exactly.
In order to make sure that they don't get worse off. So which is not good either, and we should fix that too. But like that's not our main focus. But that's
right.
the other way around.
Yeah, to answer your question even further though, Rev.
Yep. Yeah.
Of course, the number one shame, right? Being having it turned against them. I think those are the top two. And basically being told they're not a man or they need to man up. See, that's the thing. For all this bullshit that's being thrown around in society that it's men's fault, society is telling them they're not manning up at the same time. There is there's so many double messages that are thrown men's way. That's why when I hear like mixed messages like that, I'm just like, I just say right away. I mean, first of all, I mean, you're out of your mind when you say you want to be. If it's a woman, you're out of your mind when you say you want to be treated like a man, because you don't. All
That's
right,
right.
let's quit fucking lying all the time and saying you want to be treated like a man. You
It
don't
could be
want to
one
be
if they want
treated.
men
You
to feel
don't
like
want to be
women.
treated like a man. You want favoritism. All right. You want to
Exactly.
be considered more than. All right. Like, stop the fucking bullshit.
Right.
Right. So you don't want men to cry. You don't
Right.
want them to share their emotions. You want to be able to say that shit,
Right.
because it's what would you say it was? It's virtue signaling, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's all it is. You don't mean it because you don't want it. All right. Because, feminists have betrayed themselves recently by doing the whole, I think a lot of people were telling them you shouldn't be going down this road. They started the whole emotional labor by dealing with guys, using them as their therapist. And what did people
Yeah.
start saying? What did, especially MRA start saying? Wait a minute, wait a minute. You've been saying you've been wanting them to do that, bitch. What are you fucking talking about? Right?
That's
So,
why I said they say toxic masculinity is bad, and then when men don't have toxic masculinity, as they define it, they think that's bad because it's uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, but
it's
why don't you
uncomfortable and I
consider
got to
what they
deal
call?
with it.
Yeah, why do they
By
think so
by the
comfortable
way,
to
by the
be like
way, I
live
didn't
all
mean
the
to
time?
use the word bitch. I was directing it towards the women that are actually talking that way to their men. So I didn't mean it in general. But
And also,
anyways,
if you want to like have a relationship with somebody, don't you want to hear how your partner is feeling all the time? Like, isn't that kind of like part of
well,
what the partner
you
is?
would think that would be the way it is because of the fucking narrative. But here we go again. Here's another narrative that isn't true, right? Right?
I mean,
Yeah, but I think you should be able to be open with your partner,
Me
otherwise, what's the
too.
point of a
I'm
relationship?
not saying it isn't.
look, that goes. I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying. I mean, how much empathy do you think mothers even have for their own sons? I mean, at the end of the day, most mothers I have encountered see their sons as like an extension of them, and like some sort of um like security deposit. Like, it's not. I think it's always been that way. I mean, I'm not gonna like. I don't think we'll ever get anywhere banking on anyone's empathy, let alone women's empathy. You know, and I mean, it's getting
I,
back.
I
Yeah,
think
no,
I'm
the
saying that.
mistake that is made is that women love their sons so much that they're going to totally sacrifice for them. But in I'm not saying, just so some women don't get like all pissed off over it, I'm not saying you don't love your son, or maybe you're different from the women that don't feel that way. But there is an excessive amount of women that will and somebody said this one time and it just made so much sense. I can't remember the name of the guy. He goes, why are you automatically jumping towards women's side when you
Exactly.
have sons? Why do you think you got to get your Supergirl cape on for women, but you don't want to protect your sons? And that made so much sense to me. You know what I
I mean,
mean?
look. The thing is, it's talking about hyper agency. I mean, the bottom line is, like, as a guy, nobody takes you. Nobody will take. The truth is, nobody really cares about you, no matter what level you get to. But if
Right.
you're nobody listens to you anyway. Like, I mean, and this is a problem with the way that men treat each other. I mean, they just like.
Oh, they're horrible.
It's there's no it's like I can speak from personal experience. Like, now I don't care, and
Right.
people, I am what I am, and now it seems like the problem is I make people insecure, like, or they say
Right.
that I'm negative or nihilistic. Like, I'm not. Like I can't. People try to suck me into some sort of ego game and I don't play it. And
Yeah.
like people will just say that I'm just cynical, and I'm just describing the world exactly as it is. Like, I mean, it's just denied. It's like a lot of these guys, like, I think on some level they know this is the level where I'm at. What I don't get is like so many guys understand that like they're at a really it's bad. They know on some level that it's bad, but they're just in such denial and they're coping so hard. You see what I'm saying? Like it's like and that's what I can't break through. Like I completely understand why guys don't want to like open up to me. I don't open up to coworkers. I don't trust people. I don't want them to know my personal business. Like I get that. What I don't understand is why do people, including men, like try to like get you to put on this positive face? Like they don't want you to like understand the world as it is. That's to me what is truly perplexing. Like the way that
Scary. Well,
What's that?
I've actually seen that represented very well in forms of media. Actually, like first of in like works of fiction. Just like I have to mention, there was like one character, right? Basically, what she was told to believe. What do you want? Do you want the truth that you are aware of now to get out, and risk losing your way of life, or would you rather preserve your way of life?
Yeah.
At the expense of what's true, and she chose just to preserve her way of life at the expense of the truth, and that's the reason why she got promoted to the highest position in the society. But then she was killed because she was being a tyrant. But that's kind of like what you get. You get all the power in society, but then when society is based on a lie, society is not going to be very stable, and people are going to get rid of you, and then they're going to get rid of you. And that what happened. Very good storyline. It's amazing. It's so beautiful.
What's the name of this? Drew. What is the name?
The name of this. Okay, the story is called Apocrypha. It was actually like written it's actually part of the Warcraft universe. Like the story, it's a short. I can send you the link to it on the server if you want me to. It's kind of
when you get a chance. Here's what I don't get. I don't understand how these guys they think they can live a lie and that it will never come back to bite them in the ass. Like this is what like I don't get about this kind of cult-like mentality where they think that they can somehow just keep on putting it off. Like sooner or later, it's going to come back to bite them. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't. There's something really just bizarre. It's just like.
Well, we've talked about this before. It's the one good man syndrome. It's not going to happen to me.
That's true.
Right. He's right. That is what happened exactly in the story that I mentioned. Literally exactly that happened. He did come back and she fucking died.
But that's not fair. Look at Harvey. Look at Weinstein. Look at Harvey Weinstein.
That's right.
I've supported feminist causes all my life. Right.
Right.
Okay. So that's what's polluted men's heads. Is I'm the one good man. They're gonna see I'm the one good man.
Yes.
Or I'm the one good group of men. One good man is an exaggeration on purpose. But okay, so the one good group of men, and they're gonna see that. And then, they end up getting what? End up getting accused of SA, right? Sexual assault or sexual harassment. Sexual harassment's a big one. And they end up getting in court and getting sued and being treated like an ATM machine, and even getting their kids taken away from them. Right. So that's and then they do this, I've been this and I've been that, and I've been supporting women's causes and I've been that, and they get offended by it. They're fucking stupid. They're just stupid. And the stupidity is affecting most of the male population.
Don't you see? Okay, so Rocco, I think we're now in the course of this conversation, we're really getting to the crux of the matter. And the funny thing is, and it's not a coincidence that both liberals and conservatives have their good men. They have their heroes.
Right.
They're slightly different, but there's always like for liberals, it's the good men are the ones that are reasonable and can see both sides and are forward thinking, whereas with conservatives, the good men are the ones that don't complain and buck up and get through the hard times. But it's always the same thing. It's always there's a minority of good men versus the bad men, and it's always these guys.
Always.
It's in religion, it's in Christianity, it's in Islam. It's guys always want to believe there's somehow they always want to look down upon the average guy. They always need to see themselves as somehow intrinsically a level up against your average guy. And this is a huge fucking problem. Like I don't think most men like have any understanding of any of these ideologies. It's just somehow they want to be useful and good. I think that's really what's driving it. And they're afraid of being thrown under the bus. It's very like irrational, fear-based behavior. You know, it's not like they understand anything. they don't understand anything. It's just as basic as you can get.
Just like get by and then I'll be safe, but
Exactly.
you're not going to be safe forever.
Exactly.
Because if you understand, because a society based on a lie is not going to be sustainable. That's like
Exactly.
trying to like make an equation in mathematics with like incorrect numbers. It's not going to work.
Right. That's right. I think it's just psychologically really difficult for a lot of guys to kind of I think really to understand themselves and understand their own value. Like MGTOW always talked about this, but there was no substance to it whatsoever. Like, and I think it's just if you there's no way for you to know what your value is if you don't understand yourself and the world around you and your relationship to the world. Like you can only really understand what your value is if you understand yourself. And I think that the problem with a lot of guys is they've been conditioned to just live a certain way and think a certain way for so much of their life that they can't break free. You tell them to read a book, you know, it's just like they're lost in the thorns. They're lost in the bushes. They feel empty. They feel lost and alone and abandoned, and they just don't know where to go.
Yeah. I think it's because they're cowards, and I think that cowards are basically like the worst people. I think that being a coward is basically being evil in a way.
I mean, I don't have a problem with cowards. I don't have a problem. I have a problem with arrogant and dishonest cowards. You can't hold it against anyone for being scared or being a coward. Like everyone can have weakness. What the problem is when people lie about it, when they mask their genuine feelings, you know. I don't want to victim blame and attack weakness. Like anyone can be weak, and most people, to be honest, most people are kind of weak. It's just they're so men are just they're so brainwashed into being winners, and they don't know what that means. They don't know what that means.
Well, I can say individually, like as an individual person, like I would say that I know what I want, and I see a lot of people have it. It's not that like outlandish like things that I want, but I do think that do feel entitled to it because other people that put in equal amount of work, if many times less, they still get it. So therefore, I should get it too because that would just be fair.
Okay, I mean, I kind of, yeah, I understand that thinking, but what does that have to do with cowardice?
Oh, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's basically about to do with like your self-worth and your and like, because I have pretty high, okay, sometimes pretty high self-worth, and I do think that I deserve a lot of things that other people get to have.
I mean,
mean-
see, this is the problem is when you compare yourself to other people, you're still locked in a hierarchy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
that's-
this is why I don't think like that. Like, I'm just giving you my perspective. I broke free from all that thinking because it's like, okay, maybe I'm not this guy, but at least maybe I'm not rich, but at least I'm not this guy in the bottom. And it's like you get conditioned to just see the world in terms of hierarchies, and it's like you're never really breaking free from that and thinking kind of like um from the ground up. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that does kind of make sense, but I do think that like if that I don't really like it delusional to think that I'm going to be rich and wealthy and successful, like, but that's not really what I value. I have certain things that I want to get out of life, and then I'm pretty satisfied, if that makes sense. Like,
No.
uh,
Okay, that see that I get, like that makes sense. It's but I think a lot of guys don't get to that level, if that makes any sense. You know, they're not at
I mean, they're like
the-
stuck. They have to be best.
what's that?
I mean that they're like stuck. That they have to be at the top all the time.
Yeah, I mean, from a young age, they're stuck in sort of like this hyper competitive mode, and they're always looking at other guys to see what they have, and they're never thinking, do I even really want any of this? You know, it's a deep problem because they just really just they don't understand themselves, and the problem is that our society just thoroughly discourages any type of introspection whatsoever. Do you know what I'm saying?
Like,
It-
like,
it-
like to me, I think it's just because humans being a social animal that if they're told or people do a certain thing that is normative, or they're told
Yeah.
that something is good, then they just instinctively like act like that's what they should have.
That's right.
Because this is how humans are as an animal, right?
Right.
And I do think that's normal if a society is healthy, but it's not good when society isn't healthy. Like, for example, if you're a society where it's considered to, I don't know, like our society is basically like, or many, we're not really the same society, but it doesn't really like give you like a thing to strive for. Like, it's very weird. I
Yeah.
don't even know what society wants, to be honest. If I'm
Yeah, but why can't you just think for yourself? But that's my point.
I can think for myself. I can, but many people, aren't evolved to need to think for themselves.
Okay,
Men actually a little bit better at doing that on average, to be honest. But they haven't really been like this need for you need like, what do you want? People are just like
Exactly.
people are usually like just do whatever like was social or like normal to do.
Right. But it's even more the case with men. Like with men, nobody ever asks men what they want. So from a young age, they're just being put into a box. So like that's my point. Like guys just don't understand themselves at all. Like they just have no. It's really hard if your whole life you've just had obligations thrust on you and you're never given.
We live in a massive gaslighting
Yes.
cult
Yes.
because everything you're saying, they're pitched the exact opposite.
Exactly.
And, okay, so they're pitched the exact opposite of reality. So that's gaslighting. And
Right.
it's like, no, you're privileged. You're not told
Exactly.
to not hit girls. Yeah, we
Right.
are. We're told all the
Yeah.
time not to hit girls when we were
Exactly.
little boys. Okay. So they do that to us all the time. They just like will spew an unreality to us. Like, No. It's Men's Day every day. Oh
Right.
yeah, okay, sure. Like it's just so fucking fake and phony.
Exactly.
But the only reason it's done is because, once again, it's repetitive what we're saying, but it's true. The majority of men sign on to it. They just do.
I
They
Exactly.
know
sign
why I
on
could
to it.
never sign on to it.
Whether it's they bought into it because of denial, or whether it's they really know it's not true but they're accepting it anyways. They're signing on to it. So
That's right.
I mean, they wouldn't keep throwing this shit at us if it wasn't fucking like basically like not tolerated. But it's tolerated, so
Yep.
we keep getting this shit thrown at us. Like
Exactly.
it's like
Exactly. No,
it's
it's just from a young age. It's like just a collective conditioning where we're just from
yeah,
a young age just put up with it, put up with it, put up with it, put up with it, and
right,
like a lot of these guys don't even know what they're putting up with. They have no
right,
clue what they're putting up with at all.
right, exactly. So yeah, and the ideal age to brainwash um into the men that they're going to become is not only starting from very young, but like when they get into puberty, like 12, 13.
Yeah.
Just how that piece of shit in the UK, where they're teaching boys not to be not to be uh, toxic against toxic masculinity.
Right. Right. Right.
They're actually doing that. This is actually a fucking piece of legislation, and they're actually doing it in school. So they're basically uh, given not just statewide but nationwide brainwashing. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's just as bad as 1984. It is. It is.
Yes.
It's just as bad. It's just as bad as Animal Farm. I mean, it's like, the fact that you have adults even asking, "Oh, is this bad if we do this?"
Right.
That's so fucking. You've got to be. I don't know. You got to be sick to ask if it's okay if you're doing that to boys in school. So, I mean, we're definitely in a cult
That's
of
exactly it.
denial, and we're in a cult of brainwashing, and we're in a cult of gaslighting.
That's
That's what
exactly it.
it is.
That's
It's
exactly
Yeah,
it.
it's gaslighting. I mean, on such a scale, you know, that I really lose patience for adults that buy into this shit and then say they're one of the rational people. I really do.
Yep.
I really don't.
That's
I don't have
frustrating.
any patience for them. I just
I agree.
I don't even I don't tolerate them in my presence at all.
I
I
agree.
just don't anymore. You know?
I agree.
I mean, I don't want to get into an altercation as far as like aggressive or, beat the shit out of them, even though I might feel like beating the shit out of them. But I will walk away from their presence. They could come up to me and start talking to me, and I'll look at them and I'll just slightly nod my head and I'll just walk away.
I mean,
That's what I'll do.
that's actually that can be powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been told that I can be very condescending, and I don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even mean to be condescending. I think usually I just come off as like really frustrated. It's
Yeah.
like it's just I erroneously assume that people like have an interest in history and the truth, and they just don't. And like and that's fine. But going back to what I said before, in the beginning of this conversation, like I just wish people could, at the very least, could be less pretentious and just
Yeah.
be more like overweight pandas or like overweight golden retrievers. Like if you're like these guys, sometimes I wish these men would just kind of roll on their backs and just say, "I'm a good boy," right? Because that's really what they're doing.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
cut out the fancy words. Like you're just a
Well, we used to
unsniffed
have back
officer.
we used to yeah, we used to have back in the day the saying we used to say to these guys. We used to say, why don't you roll over and be a good boy? Maybe she'll pat you on the head and let you
Right.
play out in the yard a little bit. You know, I mean, because that's what they're behaving like. It's like,
Exactly.
why is your life like you're acting like your life depends on these humans' approval? Like, what the
Yes.
Well,
fuck is wrong with you?
if it's
You
going
know?
to give like if you're going to give your reproductive or financial success, then I kind of get it. But many of the things that you get told in society as a man to do is to do without any form of reward, which is
Of
like,
course.
but if
Exactly.
no reward, then what's the fuck's the point?
Exactly. Exactly.
No, the point is you're not going to
Man,
be
you know what? If more
then
more
it's under
men would
threat. Good
actually
point.
say that, I need to be rewarded for this shit.
Yeah.
Oh man, we would be so much better off.
Yeah, I gotta say, I
You
think
know,
reward
when
should be
when it's
something
even when
financial
it's even
is very realistic.
suggested, when a guy says, "Well, what am I getting out of this? What are you getting out of this? Why do you need something out of this?" A real man would do this because, you
No, a
know.
real man really wouldn't, because a real man
No,
is
we know this,
motivated,
but that's what's told
evolved.
to them. That's what's told to them.
Yeah, which is, and then you can use throw it back at them by saying, no, a man is evolved to be a male adult human, which is a type of placental male, and placental males have a very specific reproductive strategy, and they just, and if you would, and placental male doesn't really do shit, just for if it doesn't lead anywhere, because those it
Right,
did,
but they
died
but
out.
in their mind, placental males are supposed to roll over and just sacrifice themselves
Well,
endlessly.
then there
But
is
that's brainwashing. That is cult behavior 101. That's
Absolutely.
lack of boundary. That is
Yeah.
okay, now that is not biology. Okay,
No.
there's no way.
You're
I'm
right.
I'm still trying to make sense of the whole biology aspect, but I know for a fact that has nothing to do with any type of evolutionary history. Like
Right.
that is classic cult behavior,
It is.
narcissistic cult behavior, of just denying people, men in this case, boundaries. Basically,
Right.
you're not allowed to say what's in it for me. You don't question anything. There's no negotiation. There's no bargaining. You're not allowed. You're kept in the dark. It's just you have no bound. That is something that is just conditioned into
Yeah.
men.
Yeah. Eat this warm bowl of shit and don't forget to say thank you. That's what it is.
Yeah, but the
That's what it
men
is.
who do that, they're not going to be able to breathe. Therefore, the men like me are going to be way more like, more common in the future, because we are going to evolve better. Because
I mean,
You hope.
but it's the whole breeding thing. It's only like that because of a social structure. Like,
Right.
like that's the thing. Like people, you can, and this is where I know this might be going a little bit off topic, but like people always say, "Oh, the nature versus nurture thing." Like the way that human societies have been run for the last 10,000 years with the agricultural revolution, there has no analog in the natural kingdom. Like there's no other life form with the same sort of class system and inheritance and legal systems. Okay, there's similarities between human beings and ants. Okay, and let's say
some other animals. I
What's
can
that?
actually explain this. It's actually
But
basically
no, don't change the subject yet. Okay, hang on. The point is, like, these kinds of behaviors cannot, like, you can't just say that it's like the kinds of behaviors. For example, like people, people always talk about what is it? Male disposability and yeah, the ratio of males that passed on their genes to females, but people forget, like, a lot of that was due to massive genocides that only existed because of sedentary lifestyles that came about between 10 and 5,000 years ago. Like, there's just, like, you can't have, there are no, yes, there are hierarchies in the animal kingdom, but there's no concept of privilege. Like, dolphins don't have legal codes, neither do orcas, and like the hierarchies are much more fluid. Like that's why I haven't made up my mind, but I just know the difference between, like, basic biology and, like, legal political institutions. Like, that's such a huge leap. You can't, it's it's like comparing, apples to battleships. It just doesn't make sense. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, but like there wasn't. But my point I was trying to say was that like humans being a very social animal, social animals are some animals that you can condition into doing certain things much easier than solitary animals. Like you can condition
true.
humans to do a lot of things that are actually very bad for the individual human. It's just that being a social animal come with being able to be conditioned very easily. That is generally a good thing for many animals are like that. It's just that good trait actually could actually be exploited in order to treat the animal very poorly. And I think that's basically been happening to humans by humans for basically longer than written history, to be honest. And it's just like a huge flaw in like the nature of humans. Like it's an insane flaw because it's really terrible. Like even though being a very social animal, if not the most social animal there is, because it's so easy to condition humans to do certain things, to believe certain things.
It's true.
Yeah, it's very weird, but it's it is because humans are social animal, which is a good thing.
But I mean, it's to say that it's a good thing. It's just a thing. I mean,
right, sure. But like basically, like everything that animals are, they're around because they have their traits, and if a trait exists, you can say a good thing biologically. It doesn't mean you need to have it.
Gave us an advantage, but our sociability, 50,000 years ago, when we were living in small bands. Okay, we were more social than Neanderthals, so we lived in bigger groups than Neanderthals, but we still didn't live in gigantic metropolises. You know what I'm saying? Like everything, civilization scales things up to a level that's like just not seen in nature. And also you have to remember, like, humans are social, but we're actually socialized to be social. That's what the school system does. Like, we're literally in the military, we're literally, as men, we're broken down to be broken down. Like, we're literally turned into nuts and bolts. like we are social, but like we are the whole point of the school system is just to turn our brains into mush, essentially, and to just accept revelation and expert opinions on things. I mean, it's not like it's in validation. It's all just about we humans self-domesticated. I mean, if you look at the size of our mouths, I mean, it's kind of weird and it's kind of creepy, but we're one of the few species that managed to kind of evolve themselves into being a certain kind of way, and I don't even know if it's necessarily for the good.
No, that's actually true, because you're right. Like, evolution is very neutral. But one point I have to make is that even though we are in a very like artificial society, every given environment, that is still an environment we are in right now, and every given environment has selection pressures, which means that some types of males and females are going to be, by very different selection pressures in very different environments, have a different reproductive success.
Right.
And in this current environment we are in right now, a man like me is actually going to be, because I feel entitled, and because I know my worth to a large extent, and because I have goals, and because I can like think myself above a lot of social pressures. That's actually extremely advantageous for a man in today's society, in this environment, which means that if a trait is very like advantageous, it's going to be, that's what makes it more reproductively successful, which is that men like me are just on average going to have more kids than men who aren't like me.
I mean,
it's like very few men like me, but we are still going to be on per capita more reproductively successful than men who are not like me. So the whatever like brain structure we have, like which is logic part of our genetic coding, and
I think
what makes
about evolution.
our race are going to influence like the genetic makeup of future generations. It's
Yeah,
just
but
like we are evolving.
it's nothing stops evolving, but it's all dependent on the environment, and this is something people don't understand. Evolution doesn't work. Like 99% of all life forms that ever existed are extinct, and this is when I get called a nihilist. And it's not nihilism, it's just people can't come to terms with the fact that the universe didn't create them with their feelings in mind. Like it's just life happened to evolve on a planet, the third planet closest to the sun, and certain things just aligned in just such a way that life could evolve. You know, the Earth is the correct distance from the sun. We orbit a certain type of star. The process of life was able to take hold, and it's like life is incredibly precarious. Like life forms go extinct all the time. Like there's no meant to be. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like
It's not.
there's
That's
no
so true. But that's just how evolution works, though.
it's there's no this like in tradcoms these get stuck in this religious thinking where, you know, a man is meant to do this and a woman is meant to do that. Like a stegosaurus is meant to have spines. Like a fish is meant to be under the water. Like there's no meant to be. Like at one point, you know, there was no soil on the land and fungi. There were no plants, and at first it was fungi that helped create the first layers of soil. Like there's no. It's just like it's a sloppy process. Like just and the conditions change. So the conditions that humans evolved in are radically different from the conditions that we live in now. I mean, it never ends. It's just I think people tend to like they project onto the universe human social structures, and
oh, you can finish. I can say
these social structures are like they existed in the blink of an eye in comparison to like how long the universe has been around. You know, like I mean, in medieval Europe, you were considered higher status man if you were good with a sword. I mean, nowadays it's like, are you good with, I don't know, computer networking? I mean, it's like, are you in social media? I mean, it's all just adaptation to the environment. There's no such thing as good genes. People can't wrap their head around these. There's like, women don't have like special binoculars to determine what the good genes are. There's just genes. Like a stegosaurus is not better than a great white shark or a giraffe. They're all just blobs of meat that found certain niches to survive in. Like there's no, it's humans project hierarchical thinking onto a world that is just absolutely in constant flux and chaos. You know, like the Romanov dynasty existed for 300 years in Russia.
Right.
Absolute monarchy, put people to death all the time. You know, Nazi Germany killed how many people? Millions of people. Existed from what, 33 to 45. In the time scale of like the life on this planet, it's nothing. Like it's just the human mind can't comprehend these time scales. It just doesn't understand what worked, you know, 200,000 years ago is not going to work in 2025 on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. And what did work now a lot of time didn't work back then. And there's people who say
Comparing,
people who say that things are meant to be. You're meant to do that. The thing about evolution, that just proves that nothing is meant to be.
right.
It just means whatever works.
This biological, imperative stuff. Well, this is the way we're built, and this is the way it worked. Which really goes into a lot of the current red pill stuff, and even spills over into a lot of tradcon stuff. It's such bullshit because you literally had humans living in shelters and caves with maybe 10 or 20 of us spread all throughout the world. So there was literally only a few thousand of us. You can't even compare that
Exactly.
to what we're going through today. You just can't. You know,
Right, but
you know,
that's the point.
you had any type of injury because people sucked at first
Yep.
aid. You
Yep.
had animals killing you. I mean,
Yep.
you had other tribes waiting to take you out. I mean, we just on a massive scale, we don't experience that today. We just don't.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
Yeah, but
so you
that's
can't
exactly
compare it.
yeah, that's
Exactly.
exactly the point. The point is that since because evolution means that things are that the genomes are changing, right? That's what evolution is. It's an adaptation. That itself proves that nothing is meant to be. Because if things
Exactly.
were meant to be, then things wouldn't
Yeah,
change.
Exactly.
right.
So that was
It-
or you're meant to. No, you're not. You're meant. Here's basically okay. If you want to talk evolutionarily, and if you manage to make sure that more of the genes pass on, then whatever leads to that is whatever you are supposed to do.
exactly. It's not. It's gonna be radically different from environment to environment. I mean, the biggest problem I had with Stardust, Thinking Ape, whatever. He made it like it's not that I reject biology at all. Like I do not reject biology. It's just that it's like so many of these types, like just they don't really get like how um biology. They just don't get biology or even basic anthropology. Like they don't they can't even they don't even acknowledge that humans lived in tiny, extremely tight knit groups for most
Yeah,
of their history. Like it's like the most basic uh the most basic concepts. Like they can't wrap it around their head. Like this idea that somehow like females have some sort of insight into what superior genes are. Like it doesn't make sense. Like it's just random. It's random slop. Like
yeah,
evolution always producing weird looking life forms that look like they're some sort of dish rag at the bottom of the ocean. Like it doesn't none of
right,
it makes any sense. Well, human beings walk upright. It gave us mostly advantages. It also gave us severe lower back problems. I mean,
right.
you could go on and on. I mean, there's no nothing. There's nothing written in stone when it comes to biology. There's all
Right.
types of life forms that live in bizarre niches. This idea that men evolved to be the slaves of women. Like it doesn't. There's no other life form like that. Like I don't
Yeah,
like. There's patterns. I can see similarities throughout. Like yes, like females typically are the choosers in most mammals, and certainly most mammals, but like the family units differ drastically, and usually it's kind of like in most there's a mating ritual, and eventually the older male eventually loses his spot to a younger male. Like
right.
there's this it's what's it anthropomorphize I can't anthropomorphism, like the people. I don't know why it's so common in people where they just project human qualities onto nature when in so many ways the way we live now is just so radically different from
Right.
any other life form.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you can see similarities, like
Yes.
when you take certain ape species, right? You
Yes.
could see similarities. I mean, I'm not saying you can't see. You could even see certain similarities just going, looking at lions and looking at dogs. But it it's still how we have evolved has been, and I am not attaching superior to this at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying different. We've evolved so differently, right, than our fellow creatures as
Yes.
human beings. We've evolved so differently, and we've become so fucking numerous that
Yes.
that's going to that the fact that we developed these big brains, we're walking upright, and the fact that we developed agriculturalism and farming, uh, and the fact that we've managed to have billions of us on the planet by now. I mean, this has affected us in numerous ways, you know.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. Hey, y'all, I'm gonna have to get going.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to. This has been a great talk. I'm glad it's being
Yes,
recorded
yes, yes.
and it'll be played. Let me know what's going on with that because I do have to get going. But I
Hey,
just wanted to
before you
say
go, good.
for everyone out there
Yeah,
that heard us at the beginning, we're not like the typical MRAs. All of us believe in intersectionality. Okay, it's not, I first of all, intersectionality just makes sense because it's proven, it's a fact. There's intersections. However, we don't use it in the way that a lot of feminists use it. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah.
nothing that, I mean, intersectionality does make sense. It's the way it's used in a negative way that we don't agree with.
Yes.
Anyways, what were you saying
Wait,
before?
but before you go, I think the next discussion we should continue with this debate. I think I kind of want to discuss uh, human intelligence and
Yeah,
rationalization because I think it will in language because I think it ties into a lot of the problems that we're dealing with in terms of both our evolution in the last 300,000 years and what we're dealing with today.
yeah, I
I'm gonna
agree.
I'll put it um in the agenda. Um, but I think we should try to like keep like somewhat of a flow. Like I think we should go. We try each time we do this. I think we should go from. We should have a flow. We should, you know what I'm saying. It shouldn't be too random, you know, because it's nice to kind of sort of continue where we left off.
Sure.
Uh, and I mean, we're gonna be we could go on forever, you know. But I mean, all of
Yeah,
this
we
stuff,
could.
it's so connected. It's like
Right.
it's. I mean, oh my god, it just never
But
ends. It's a
I think we nailed down a lot of really good stuff, and I mean
yes,
that's why
yes,
we need to record it,
absolutely,
because it's
absolutely,
hard to get that groove back.
yes. Oh, did he go? Drew, are you there, Drew? What happened? Testing 1 2. Testing, testing, testing. Drew's gone. Rocco. Testing 1 2. Testing, testing.
Okay, now we are probably finished here. I assume nobody's around. If you are, perfect, great. Now this was, sorry, I had to go for a while. Let's read where it didn't end right where it ended, but this was very interesting, and I'm happy. Yeah, I'm good. We got to record this. So bye bye.